Welcome, everybody.
Hola.
Hola. I have a different background view. Can anybody guess where that is? That doesn't really give it away, but that's why I took it.
It's not Cleveland.
No. Not Madrid either. But it's in Spain. Come on, you Spaniards, give it a guess. There's actually not much there to go on. But you do have an ocean, a couple little buildings, and then this neighbor happened to have this little Buddha there. Let me take a picture of it. Actually, I'm not even sure where it is. I think it's Lastres in Asturias. I hope, or I was lost. So I just got back from there. It's quite different than Madrid. Everybody was still wearing masks, but not a sense of there being a crisis there as much as in Madrid. But very nice. I love how the people come and then the checkerboard rearranges itself. So how are people doing? Kind of, oh, good. Okay, thumbs up. That's good. Yeah, it's so funny. Saladana is, it went from being a project of service to just a project of love for me, I guess. And it reminded me of like the monks in Tibet, many of them now are in Nepal and India, where they make statues and they make tankas, and it's just really an expression of devotion. And then that's it. They create this beautiful these symbols of devotion, and then they let them go. And in some cases, they even destroy them after they make them. And it almost, not that we're going to destroy Saladana, but who knows if we'll ever be able to use it. But it's felt very much like just this act of devotion. I'm in there, mopping the floor, even though nobody's going to walk on it, but it's like, it's okay. I want the floor to be clean. I even bought a new tela, there was this store in, I'm going to mispronounce the name of this town. You need to get better names for these towns. And Nacho, you correct me if I get it wrong. Gijon. No, wrong. Gijon. It's even if I go with the Asturian one, which is X, I think it's Xixo. Gijon. Oh yeah, that's better. Gijon.
Gijon. Yes.
So in the center, they had this nice little store that sells Buddhist products, and so I bought something for Saladana. And again, it's like I'm going to put it up, and so next week I'll hopefully have it in my virtual background. But you guys will be the only one to see it, unless you visit. Anyways, okay. I think we're probably mostly all here now. Oh, there's a nice one, Ignacio. Where's that? Oh my gosh. That is not in the Atlantic, I don't think. What happened to Nacho though? He disappeared into the ocean. So yeah, let's meditate. Woo-woo. I was listening to a teacher, a Tibetan American teacher, a Tibetan meditation master named Alan Wallace, and he said something that I liked very much. He said, the purpose of the samatha, or the samadhi meditation that we do at the beginning to calm the mind, to center the mind, to focus the mind, to stabilize the mind, is in service of vipassana. It's in service of seeing things clearly. And with sufficient samadhi, which would be difficult to get in a short Sunday afternoon sit, but would be possible in long retreat, he said, the vipassana, or the insights that you would have or could have, become like permanent. It's like they change our DNA. They change the way we see in the world in a permanent way, subject to the laws of impermanence, of course. But they're a bit of nibbana, they're a bit of freedom that becomes permanent, like sticks. And so it made me think that we do it correctly, or like in a way that I think he would approve, where we sit for like 20 minutes, we stabilize the mind, we center the mind, and then we open it up to a more vipassana experience. Probably not going to result in permanent enlightenment in 30 minutes, but you kind of get the idea. So I thought we'll do that. For those of you who have been enjoying the open awareness, the awareness of awareness, please do that do that. That's absolutely acceptable as well. But I'll guide it more kind of using the breath or the energetic body for samatha, and then opening it up for vipassana, focusing on the impermanence, the changing nature of all things. So I will set my timer. If there's no preguntas, questions, comments. Looks like, somebody said something, an aftiesta, from aftiesta. That's an interesting word. It almost sounds like Antifa. That's terrible. That's what I am. I am Antifa. But let's see. She said, everything is clear. Oh, good. Oh, but the spelling doesn't help me. It's the pronunciation. Okay. Enough. I haven't meditated enough today. I'm a little goofy. I drove for 5 hours. Okay, here we go. On your mark, get set, go. So of course, finding a comfortable posture. Maybe just for me, and kind of release that silly energy that I had, little flubber of the lips. And the deep breath always helps to find our breath, find our body, find the present moment. Such a wonderful tool, the breath, available pretty much all the time. So dropping into the body, feeling the body, maybe scanning through the body, You do it in an organized way, starting maybe from the feet up to the head, or the head down to the feet, or just big picture, whole posture scan. Just notice any sensations. Could be physical, could be the points of contact where the body is touching the chair, the cushion, the floor, couch, other body parts. Could be internal sensations, currents of energy. Could be emotions, maybe a little anxiety or some happiness, or could even be hunger, any number of things that could be happening in our inner life. So we're aware of them, we notice them, experiencing them without getting attached and without pushing them away. And so if you like, you can use the sitting posture, the whole body, as an anchor. And when your thoughts take you away on a little journey, once you notice that, you can let them go and then just come back to feeling the body. This has many, many benefits. But if you like a more narrow object to focus on, something a little more single pointed, you can use the breath. So let's find the breath. Just kind of notice, where is it most obvious to you? Is it the movement of the belly, movement of the chest, the air entering and leaving the nostrils? Or is it maybe the whole path of the breath? You can always experiment if you're not sure, but once you kind of think, okay, I like this, try to stick with that as your anchor, as your object, your home base. Just coming back to it again and again. Once you notice your thinking. And lastly, if the body and breath don't work for you today, you can always use hearing as an anchor. This one is much more like the open awareness, where you're just receptively hearing, listening, waiting for sounds, and when sounds come, noticing. It can be quite pleasant. So we just practice with one of these anchors, coming back again and again, kindly, with compassion, curiosity, with no real goal. No, we're not going anywhere. We're just sitting here, in the present moment with ourself, with this embodied presence. If you find labels helpful, supportive, you can track your experience with simple 1-word or 2-word labels. Breathing in, breathing out, thinking, returning to the body, sensing, or sounds, hearing. This is a tool that we can sometimes use and then let it go. And then if we find we're spending a lot of time in thought, maybe use it again, bring us back. As soon as we mention that label, we've essentially come back to the present moment. We're mindful once again. If you are experiencing some really sticky thoughts, obsessive thinking, and can't let go of it, you might try putting your attention into your, especially your torso area of the body, and trying to find any sensation in the body that might be connected to the thought. Tension, contraction, or even a lightness. Could be any number of things. And maybe just feel it, experience it, and see if that doesn't break the grip that the thoughts might be having. So you can continue to practice the shamatha technique, or if you like, we can open it to a more vipassana style. And so an idea or a technique, a method, is to continue with your anchor. And then when something arises that is more obvious than your anchor, let that new thing be the anchor. And just stay with it until something else arises that's more obvious, or until it passes away, in which case you can return to your original anchor. And approaching each new object that arises in awareness with curiosity, with an investigative mind. And just notice how things are not stagnant, that even pain moves around and changes and eventually leaves. Just kind of playing around with the different objects, including maybe the sound of my voice, if that's the most obvious, or any other sounds. And even thoughts, seeing if you can be aware of your thoughts. So gradually, wherever your mind might be or have been, let's come back to the body, regrounding the awareness into the physical form, feeling whatever sensations might be present. There might be some new ones compared to 30 minutes ago. Just noticing again, feeling them, reestablishing an embodied presence. And let's give ourselves an awareness bath, an awareness hug. By that I mean, let's extend the awareness out to include the whole posture, the whole physical form, right to the level of the skin, maybe even a bit beyond the skin, into the energy field. Just notice what's there. Maybe there's a little tingling, maybe not. And holding ourselves in this way, remembering, recalling that we do this practice not only for our own benefit, our own well-being, but the benefit of all beings. And there's probably no better way that we can be of service, we can contribute to peace in this world than to have a mindfulness practice like this. And then also being mindful, being aware of the fact that there's others on this call also practicing, being appreciative of their practice. Maybe even those who might be following along on YouTube and those around the world. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just noticing what arises, if anything. Maybe there's physical sensation, maybe thoughts. Thank you all very much for supporting my practice with your presence. Since COVID began back in March, I've had a very regular afternoon session of meditation, and today I missed it because I was driving, and so it was very nice. So I was like really enjoying this meditation because it was sort of serving as my usual afternoon practice. So a couple things, I listened to a couple podcasts on the drive, and one of the things isn't exactly about meditation, but I do want to bring it up because I think it's super, super important. It's and I'm going to do a little backstory. Mostly, more or less, we follow kind of a Theravada tradition, which really only means that like my teachers and many of the teachers here in Spain and Madrid have had Theravadan teachers, maybe monks in the traditions from Myanmar or Thailand or Sri Lanka, those places. And then there are some of us who also, follow the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, Zen, Vietnamese Zen, Mahayana tradition. But I would say mostly our meditations have been kind of Theravada in nature. And as far as I know, or my impression is that the Theravada tradition, as it's been adopted by the West, is really about practice, right? It's about meditation. It's about having insights, vipassana. I personally hold the belief that the Buddha in the Eightfold Path said that we need to really reach a level of samadhi, a level of deep concentration, almost single pointed concentration, to really be able to have the insight that could lead to liberation. But in the West, because it is so difficult, especially to achieve levels of absorption, real deep samadhi, in the West, we've adopted the position for the most part that you can actually have these insights without deep concentration. And so for many of the meditation centers that I know of, Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts, Spirit Rock, California, Gaia House in England, or in, even maybe the Goenka styles, we strive, that's a terrible word. We are open to the insights that can come from our practice, even though we may not reach even get close to samadhi. But that's more or less kind of what I believe. It's mostly kind of been about practice. That's really what I think the original Westerners who brought it back from Asia to America, especially starting in the 60s, really were interested in, right? The practice and what you could achieve with a lot of meditation. Now, in the Mahayana tradition, as I understand it, and I don't know very much about it, but what I do know is that it came about, some 500 years after the time of the Buddha, and it is believed maybe to have come about from a more secular point of view, because the Theravadan, which I'm not even sure was called Theravadan back then, but the old Buddhist traditions were very much about monasteries and about monks and nuns, hopefully. But so the Mahayana had this more lay, secular point of view, kind of like us, right? And so they adopted this idea of the Bodhisattva, which the Buddha, which is a being that is of service, that won't reach enlightenment or won't reach liberation until all beings are liberated, and that person strives to help all others first. And Guanyin is probably the most famous bodhisattva that I know of, that figure of the Guanyin from the Chinese Chen tradition. And in the Mahayana, with this idea of service, they have two wings, two pillars, one of which is compassion, wanting to alleviate. And compassion, I know for some of you Spaniards, compassion can be like, oh, really Catholic or something. And in this case, karuna is the word in Pali and in Sanskrit, I believe. It isn't exactly the same as compassion is in the Catholic religion. in the form that we are talking about it, it's when faced with, when we encounter the suffering of others, we want to alleviate their suffering. We want to do something about it. Okay, so it's about alleviating the suffering of others. And so there's action, right? It's not a passive heart state. It's something where we actually would take action. And so the Mahayana tradition has really embraced this and this idea of the bodhisattva going out and being of service. And then the other side could either be, the other wing, could either be thought of as wisdom, or, and I thought this is one of the things I listened to and heard in the podcast that I was listening to today, from the Tibetan, like the Jozen tradition, the other side is emptiness. And this idea of emptiness is quite prevalent in the Mahayana tradition. So you have compassion and emptiness, or the way one teacher put it for me, emptiness being like the absolute truth, the absolute reality. And then there's the manifest reality. There's the physical reality that we experience. And his saying is something like, we understand that in the absolute reality, everything is empty, that there's not really, this kind of form, or there's definitely no long-lasting form. We're just sort of passing through this consciousness. But we must act as if the manifest reality exists, that it's real. And I've even heard that, like in the Zen tradition, which is a Mahayana tradition, which is just founded on paradox, they'll say, like the teacher might say to the students, so was this the absolute or the manifest reality? And they'll say, well, it was the absolute. And then they'll say, well, what about the manifest? And then if they say it's the manifest, well, what about the absolute? It's always based on this paradox. So you can't, so we act as if, which works for me, right? If it's not too clingy, it's not, compassion can wear us out, right? If you've got an open heart with the amount of suffering in the world right now, oh my gosh, sometimes it can be hard to get out of bed, right? So we need to take steps to make sure that we can handle, that's why we have equanimity, right? We have the fourth of the four immeasurables is our equanimity. But with this idea, this point of view that we act as if, there's an absolute reality, and then the manifest reality isn't exactly true, but we act as if it's true. So that's kind of a little bit of this backstory, right, that I want to talk about, is that I believe that if we do nothing, that's the same as doing something. If there's suffering in the world and we do nothing but meditate, I don't think that's good enough. I really think we need to act. If there's a wrong, if there's an injustice, I believe we need to act. We need to do what we can, subject to or within the bounds of our own equanimity and our own happiness. We don't want to, destroy ourselves in the process. So that leads me to this other podcast that I listened to that really shook me up. But I'll mention, like right now, I know many activists, many Buddhist activists who are super, super concerned about global warming, about the degradation of our environment and, the potential future if we continue on this path. And I know many, especially in the United States, I know many teachers right now who are very involved in Black Lives Matter, in the injustice that is perpetrated on Black people in America. This is super, super important to many, many people right now. And the one that kind of has me going, and has had me going now for a number of years, is the state of confusion that I believe many people are in as a result of social media. This is like my pet peeve. Okay. And in fact, 2 years ago, I quit going to Facebook because I didn't know what else to do, as just sort of an act of, what can I say, an act of rejection or whatever, because I believe Facebook is evil, absolutely evil. Okay. And pretty much all the social networks, I think, are. So there is a movie out, a documentary by an ex-Google guy named Tristan Harris, and I'll get the name of the movie, but he documents exactly how in today's world we are unable to be empathetic, similar to compassion, with the other side, right? With people who believe differently. And it's because there are 3 billion people, we're talking almost half the population of the world, who get their news from social media. That don't read the newspaper, that don't read more or less trusted sources that have editors, that have a certain standard, that are professionally trained and so forth. They just get it from social media. And how does it work? It works by these algorithms, right? It works by machine, where the machine notices, oh, this person was interested in a post about child abuse. So then it'll send this person other information that might be similar to that, which could lead them, this was sort of an example on this podcast, to this QAnon group, which I maybe have mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it to this group, but it's many, many thousands, if not millions, I don't know, of people in America that believe that there are a group of very powerful people, including the Clintons, Bill and Hillary Clinton, who are kidnapping and abusing children to like suck their life energy out to prolong their life. Some crazy, just like off the chart, crazy shit kind of a thing, right? Millions or whatever, it's many, many thousands of people believe this. And one of them, in fact, is now running for Congress from, I think, Florida, and I think might actually win her seat and become a Congress lady going into Congress to make laws when she has this belief. And so what it's like, don't you know that this isn't true? That there's proof. I'll give another example. Last week, I was on a intercambio, and a language exchange Zoom call. And there was an American there who started talking about a Democratic senator from New Jersey who had had sex with young girls in the Dominican Republic. And how could he get reelected? But he did. And after the call, I did a little fact checking on my own about that. And apparently this senator had been accused of doing this by 2 women, but ultimately it was revealed that those 2 women had been paid by somebody to say this, and that in the end they said it never happened, that they had said it because they got paid. But this guy was on this Zoom call telling people that it had happened, that this senator had done this and he had gotten reelected, spreading false news, spreading misinformation, right? And listening to this Tristan Harris, it's because we get into me too. I get into my bubble, like on YouTube, right? I started interested in awareness of awareness. So pretty soon YouTube started sending me videos of other awareness of awareness videos, right? Which was great. I was interested in that topic, so I was getting them. But it could also work if you're interested in some other kind of, maybe a little weirder of a thing, and then they start sending you more weird things, and YouTube hardly screens their stuff at all. I mean, every once in a while they might. So how does this come around to Buddhism, right? It's the very first of our noble truths is right view, seeing things clearly, right? And to me, this can be expanded to mean seeing things clearly in the world we live in now. And if we're in a bubble of misinformation, and we're not at all, because we know if you're on social media, it isn't going to send you something from the other side if it doesn't think you're interested. That, the machine, right? The algorithm sees what you're interested in and sends you more of the same. It doesn't send you the opposing view, I guess, unless you were to have looked for yourself. And so now, both like in the political divide, kind of left and right, or whatever you want to say it, people are really worse than ever dug in to their individual beliefs, right? Because that's all they hear and see. They don't even see the other side. So it's impossible for both sides to have empathy, to connect to each other. And I believe, I am this concerned, I believe that this could lead to some really catastrophic things. In the United States, I would not be surprised that in the next month and a half that there is not some serious violence, some serious conflict, a constitutional crisis in the election coming up, because both sides don't believe the other side, don't even know what the other side thinks anymore. And I've seen it here in Spain. I mean, I was so bummed that the owner of a store where I have bought a lot of the art that's in Saladana from, this guy is one of these dudes who listens and reads and follows misinformation. Bullshit. He said that the Fauci, the probably most respected medical scientist, I think he's actually a scientist, in the United States, is a liar. He called him mentiroso. Like, no, he's the only one telling the truth, And then he also said, he tells me, oh, the United States has the COVID, it's over. They have figured it out and it's finished. And I'm like, what? As far as I know. And this is a guy who owns 3 stores. You'd think he would be halfway, smart. I mean, maybe he is smart, but he's very confused. So I guess my point, and I'm sort of on my what do they call it? You stand on this thing and you preach. There's a word for it. Can't come to it. It's not coming to my mind, but and I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir, but I do believe that this is a part of our practice. It's not only to see that everything is impermanent and everything is dukkha, right? And everything is impersonal, but to see the truth in this world as if it's real, right? Pretending it's real, trying to see what is the truth. And right now, I believe the truth is that social media, because they make way more money off of lies, they make way more money off of conspiracy theories than they do off the truth. It's literally like a disease. It's an addiction. We are addicted to social media. We're addicted to the likes. We're addicted to all this stuff. And they're just feeding us what they know is addicted. It's addicting. It's no different than the food. It's no different than a narco traficante. It's the same as far as I'm concerned. All right. I pushed that enough. I'm going to end, though, on a more positive note. So, one thing I just love about Buddhism is that I can just pick off the shelf just about any list and I can find some solace. I can find some useful tools. I can find something to help me. And So the thing I'm going to show you guys here real quick has to do with karma, right? The Buddhist version of karma was kind of revolutionary in his day. And it basically said that actions have consequences, right? And that through our body, mind, and speech, we can influence our karma. We can influence the consequences. And so he gave us a list of 10 wholesome, call them actions, for us to follow, where we would create good karma, we would have positive consequences. And there are also the 10 unwholesome, which are essentially just avoiding these 10 wholesome. And so I pulled this list out of a book that I've been reading on emptiness by Guy Armstrong. And so I'm going to share it with you guys because I got it highlighted. Let's see if I can do this. Find my book. Hello, Mr. Book, where are you? There we go. Okay, so this is coming from Guy Armstrong's book on emptiness. This is from the chapter about karma. So the Buddha outlined what he considered 10 unwholesome and 10 wholesome acts in this area, in their body, speech, and mind. So in bodily acts, 3 actions are considered to spring from unwholesome intentions, and this is key in Buddhist karma. It's our intention. You know, what is it that we want to spring from unwholesome intentions and therefore considered unwholesome conduct. Killing a living being, taking what is not given, like stealing, for instance, and sexual misconduct. These are also 3 of the 5 lay precepts. There are 4 kinds of speech that are considered unwholesome: false speech, malicious speech, harsh speech, and gossip. I love that. I'm sorry, I know there are Spaniards who like to gossip, but it's actually, it has its bad karma, right? It isn't wholesome. And then there are 3 kinds of mental actions which are considered unwholesome: covetousness, wanting what isn't ours, right? You know, ill will, wanting something bad to happen to somebody, and wrong view. And that was really where I was getting at regarding the social media, is that last one, wrong view. I mean, there's so much wrong view right now in the world. It is amazing. But the 10 wholesome actions are refraining from these 10. So it's refraining from these types of speech. It's refraining from killing. It's refraining from not stealing. It's refraining from sexual misconduct. And then watching our mind, even during our practice, right? Is the mind wanting more? Maybe we start to feel kind of good in our practice, you know, and then immediately there's this covetousness where we want more of that. Well, that'll probably stop the good feeling pretty quick. Or if it's something unpleasant, you know, the pushing away, the ill will, the aversion. And then the wrong view, this one could just go on and on and on. And essentially it's seeing things clearly, seeing things as they are, which is, as we've talked about, seeing the law of karma, seeing that things are also impermanent, unsatisfying, and impersonal. And then on the other page, can I do this? Oh yeah, cool. This is one of the wonderful things you'll often hear on retreat in the United States. The bliss of blamelessness. It's like when you're on retreat, it's very difficult to do any of those 10 things, or especially the talking, because you're in silence and so forth. And so you remind yourself that right now I'm blamelessness. I haven't killed anybody, you know, I haven't gossiped about anybody. I haven't acted sexually in a way that'll harm somebody, you know, kind of revel in that, feel that bliss of blamelessness. Okay, that's about time-wise. I was going to read this quote, but a little bit later than I thought. So thank you for bearing with me. I see a few people couldn't, but and I'd love to hear from anybody. See, we got a few. Anna Monica quoted, or yeah, it's quoted something that I like. Something: without interchange, there can be no outer change. Without collective change, no change matters. That's very true. Huh? Soapbox. Thank you. That's what I was saying. Yeah. The Social Dilemma. That's the name of the documentary. I highly recommend it. Please. It's on Netflix. The Social Dilemma. I think it's something that we all should watch and pass on. This is important. I mean, I think that these people in this documentary, they point out just how dangerous it's like. We were afraid of artificial intelligence. Well, this is sort of like that, but it's now. It's already happening. And what these machines, the way this has been designed, is doing, it's taking advantage of our vulnerability. You know, we human beings, we have this vulnerability. We believe shit that ain't true. You know, why exactly we do, I'm not sure, but we do. And so we can get sucked in. You know, they talk about the lizard people, right? People that are kind of operating based on their reptilian brain, which is just fight, flight, or freeze. Well, basically that's what they're doing. They're selling stuff to us that appeals to our reptilian brain. So the lizard people are taking over. Okay. I will stop there. Is there anybody who would like to say something or add something? And, you know, if you have a question about practice, please, you can ask that as well.
I just want to share how difficult it is for me to keep like activist and not to fall in all these unwholesome thoughts and actions, and sometimes it's so frustrating, especially with climate change and in Spain, that yeah, it's difficult to keep yourself balanced while getting involved with this activism. So I don't know if you have any advice in that.
Well, I mean, you're right. It absolutely is. And, you know, one of the kind of drawbacks, you might say, about practice is that we become more sensitive. We become more aware of how we feel. We become more aware of our thoughts. And so these things can be even more challenging than they were before, when we were numbed out in some way, maybe, you know, which we can numb ourselves out with even anger or resentment or whatever. But hopefully with practice, we also have the tools and the capability to be with the uncomfortable feelings more. Having said that, it is so important, the equanimity part of this, you know, to stay balanced. So you just have to be aware of what are your limits. You know, there's a politician in the United States, Puerto Rican American lady, goes by AOC, Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez, I think is her name. But we just call her AOC, right? And my daughter sent me a quote by her that said that everybody, you know, it said, you know, find your way, find your method, find what works for you to express your activism. So maybe maybe making phone calls or protesting out in the street or whatever doesn't work for you, but writing letters, something a little more, you know, passive, where you're not confronting, might be better. You know, it's very much about finding what works for us. Just like in our meditation practice, we find out, you know, what do we like? Do we like the breath? Do we like the body? Do we like awareness of awareness? You know, you find it and you go with it. Same with our activism. We want to find what works. But I don't think we can do nothing. Doing nothing is doing something, right? You know, like they say in the United States around Black Lives Matter, silence is violence, especially from a white person, right? That's complicity. If I don't speak out against racism, I'm for racism. There isn't a middle ground. It's like, oh, me da igual. No, I'm against it, right? But we got to find what works for us. We got to find our little niche and really take care of ourselves. Take care of ourselves. Because for sure, if we're on, you know, at our wits' end, they say, when we're on our wits' end where we just don't have any more, we're not going to be nearly as effective, especially with this problem, the lack of empathy, of not being able to hear the other side, because we don't even know what the hell they're hearing. Or, you know, but empathy is the only way we're going to be able to bridge the divides, I believe. We have to remember we're all together. We're one, right? This practice is about waking up from the illusion of separateness. Just because they have different beliefs, that we're still one. Keeping that in mind, you know, as the Mahayanas say, acting as if.
I don't mean to take too much time from the group, but I would like to ask, for example, a practical example. How am I supposed to develop empathy for a politician that is actually collaborating in the death of many old people in the retired houses? And how can I develop empathiness with a politician that is segregating the south of Madrid while taking out the public health system to make it private, and going against the health, the liberty, the rights, and everything that is sacred?
Yeah, I know. It's very, very difficult. I mean, that's, you know, I know, Nacho, you practice the nonviolent communication. That's why I like nonviolent communication, because it goes to the needs. Once we get to the level of the needs, then we're going to usually be at a point where we can connect to them. We can empathize with them. Doesn't mean we approve their actions, but at least we connect. Okay, this person, you know, maybe the need is to be of service. Maybe the need is for safety. Yes, in this case, she is very confused about what's valuable and so forth, but probably underneath it is a need that we all have. And we kind of try to start from there. But at the same time, we speak out. We have to speak out. We have to speak out. We have to oppose it. We vote. You know, voting is a very good way. I mean, the reason that she's still there and, you know, there's a new mayor in this town is because a lot of people didn't vote this last election in Madrid. Gotta vote. Anyways, the time is past. We usually do a little metta at the end. Are people willing to stay a few minutes and do a short metta? Okay, thank you. Yeah, and this is, you know, right, especially maybe after this is probably the most important thing we can do is goodwill, loving kindness towards ourselves, towards others. Yeah, just trying to reconnect with the body again. This is another way, you know, when dealing with people we don't agree with, if we can just stay connected to our body and out of our beliefs and thoughts and opinions about them, we'll be better off. In the body, connecting to our heart center, offering ourselves some metta, loving kindness, goodwill. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. And may I live with ease. Now, as a second group, let's try to imagine or bring to mind. How about this? Let's try to imagine or bring to mind those folks who live in those 37 zones of Madrid that have been locked down. Maybe it's more now, I'm not sure. Those people stuck at home for 2 weeks or whatever it is, no fault of theirs. Let's send them some metta. May they be happy. May they be well. May they be safe. May they live with ease. And now let's try a difficult person. For those of you willing, maybe we try the president of the Comunidad of Madrid. I forget her name, but if that's too hard, maybe just somebody who you have a little resentment towards. Somebody maybe hurt your feelings or whatever, but I'm going to try this lady. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And finally, all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. And sharing the merit for today's practice, the goodness of our practice, our Buddha nature, our Sangha, the teachings, dedicating these to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence and discrimination and racism, and free from coronavirus, and free from the negative consequences of our confusion, the confusion around social media, the confusion around misinformation, the confusion around what is important. May all beings find their path towards freedom, towards happiness. May all beings be free. Thank you all very much, especially those for hanging in there past the hour. I'm happy to form some small groups, or we could just chat in this somewhat larger group. See what happens after a couple minutes. Still some people, so I'll make a couple groups and feel free to check in. See if we do 3. Yeah, that ought to work.